Before we start this program on car bodywork repair, here's some information on 2 other videos in the same series. Mig Welding is a video that shows you exactly what to do to get professional results from your DIY set. It covers all you need to know to weld mild steel like an expert. It's ideal if you want to be really sure of the basics before you tackle the kind of jobs we'll show you in the car bodywork video. The manual metal arc stick welding video is a step-by-step guide to correct technique and safe working. It takes you from connecting up through to a practical project. It's full of useful hints and tips on how to get the best out of your welding set. We're always adding new videos to the range, so look out for the latest in this series.
Hello, and welcome to the 4th in our series for the DIY enthusiast. This one is about car bodywork repair using welding. We're going to be showing you how to assess the job that faces you and getting you to ask yourself the question, is it worth it? Perhaps part replacement is cheaper than repair. We'll also be showing you how to prepare yourself and the car for the job in hand. And of course, we'll be showing you how to do the actual welding. Throughout the program, there's going to be a very strong accent on safety. Welding can be a dangerous business if you don't play by the rules. We'll be showing you what not to tackle. We're looking specifically at damage by corrosion, not accident damage where there have been structural changes to the vehicle. That's very much the job of the crash repair expert. So it's body panels, not major structural members. We're using one of the most popular vehicles on the road in the 70s and 80s, the Ford Escort, but the techniques we'll be showing you apply to most cars. We suggest that you watch the video right through first. The sections are numbered, and there's a minute count in the bottom right-hand corner of your screens for easy reference. Well, I'm joined by the former chief welding instructor here at the Institute, Max Rugebeer.
Hi.
Now more commonly seen on your television screens. Well, Max, can we start welding?
Well, not so fast, John, because first there's a lot to know about safety.
Okay, Max, so what safety do we need to look at?
Well, we need to look at personal safety, the working environment, and of course, the car itself.
Right, well, let's kick off with personal safety.
Well, as you can see, I'm wearing a pair of overalls, heavy-duty boots. For handling materials, I'll be using short pair gloves, long gloves for when I'm welding to prevent sparks going down my sleeves, a pair of clear goggles for grinding operations, a head shield for welding, and of course, since you will be helping me, there will be a hand shield there for you to use to watch me.
Right. Now, what about people with long hair? I imagine that's pretty dangerous.
Yes, it is always dangerous working with long hair on machinery, so it is always best to wear a cap. Personally, I will wear a cap, but that's because of sparks during the welding operation.
Okay, well, a brief look there at personal safety. Can we now look at safety in the working environment?
No, I think we better get you dressed properly for the part because you will be helping me.
Sure.
I have here a pair of overalls that should fit you.
Right. Well, there we are, Max. Look better?
Yes, John, much better and safer.
Right, now what about safety in the working environment?
Well, John, as you know, most domestic garages are not designed for welding work. They're usually cluttered with flammable materials such as paint, thinners, timbers and bits of rag. But as you can see, I've cleared this one especially because I know I will be doing welding work.
Yes, but what if a fire did break out?
Well, the danger is greater when you're working in the type that's got only just one up and over door. So you must make sure that you have two exits, preferably opposite end to each other, so that should there be a fire, you can turn your back on it and walk away to the nearest and safest exit.
Okay.
And of course, you must all make sure that the garage itself is well away from the house, that it is well lit, well ventilated, because welding does produce dangerous fumes. And also, you must plan your escape route. Make sure that there is a good meter clear all around the car. And always, as a good measure, make sure there is somebody watching you when you're welding, especially when you've crawled underneath the car, working under there, somebody to watch over you.
Okay, let's look in a bit more detail at firefighting precautions.
Well, as you can see, over here, I've got 3 fire extinguishers. General purpose dry powder, carbon dioxide, and halon. Make sure you read the instructions.
Well, yeah, it looks pretty clear to me.
Yes, but make sure that you do understand how to operate them long before there is a fire.
Yeah. Now, water, sand, what would that be for?
Well, again, the water can be used on fires, but make sure it is not on any electrical fires.
Okay.
And the sand can be used on spillage on the floor.
Anything else, Max? What's this for?
Yes, this is a fire blanket. Can be used to spread over the engine when you're doing welding and grinding because of sparks. And of course it can be used on the windscreen during grinding operation and such like.
Right, now if I'm in doubt about any of these aspects of fire precautions that you've been talking about, who could help me?
Well, if you're in any doubt at all about safety of fires in your working environment, then the person to contact is a local fire officer.
Okay.
He will only be too happy to help you.
Now, you'll be coming back to these as we progress through the programme, presumably?
Yes, there will be reminders of safety aspects as the programme progresses.
Okay, Max. Well, we've looked now at personal safety, the safety of the working environment. What about car safety? And actually seeing the fuel cap there reminds me we've actually got half a tank full of fuel in this vehicle, so what do you suggest?
Well, it is always dangerous to have fuel anywhere near welding operations. So if I was going to be working close to the tank, then that will have to be removed off the car without any doubt. Similar with the fuel pipes, if I'm going to be working anywhere near them, then they will have to be unclipped from the car, as well as wrapping clean, wet rags on them and keep the rags wet at all times.
Right. What about inside the car? Lots of flammable fabrics in there.
Yes, depending on the job that we're going to do, the carpets and the seats may have to be removed. Similar, when on the opposite side of panels, trims may have to be removed, as well as under seals need to be scraped off and so on. Especially we have to be careful about hollow sections where wax have been put in as an anti-corrosion medium.
Right, Max. Well, what about in the engine compartment? There's more fire risk under here, presumably, with the carburettor and perhaps vapour in the air filter. What do you advise?
Well, I will usually cover the carburetor with wet rag, as well as putting a fire blanket on the engine before any welding work.
Okay. What about the battery?
Well, the battery has to be disconnected before any electric arc welding is done. Personally, I prefer to move it off completely.
Now, Max, something that concerns me is the glass. We've got the windscreen, the side windows, the back windows. Surely they're going to get damaged during the course of the work. Well,
I hope not, because I intend to cover them up with non-flammable material, the windscreen and the side windows, to prevent damage.
Right. What about access actually under the vehicle? I'd imagine you'd want to put this one up on ramps, wouldn't you?
No, I will not, because although using ramps sounds like a good idea, the long run-on of the ramps tend to get in the way.
So what do you advise?
Personally, I prefer to use axle stands, and also it makes it easier, gives me better access by removing the wheel then.
Right. Well, a look there at personal safety, the safety of our working environment, and car safety. Max, what now?
Well, now we've got to assess the job to see exactly what needs to be done.
Okay. Well, Max, how do we assess the problem that faces us?
Well, I've looked around the car and I've made a list of the jobs that need to be done.
Where do we start?
Well, right here, we can see the wing is badly corroded and it's been repaired once by a filler. Further on at the back here, badly corroded with a large hole, and I've also seen on the panel inside there's a hole in it. So this wing really is too badly damaged to be repaired, so it will have to be replaced.
Okay, what next?
Next on my list is a bonnet slam panels corroded at both ends, but this can be repaired.
Well, the top of the suspension leg here looks in pretty bad shape. What do you plan there?
That will need a reinforcement panel.
Okay, and then?
Next job is, of course, this wing here, which is similar to the other one. Corrosion at the front and at the rear.
Presumably, Max, as you actually take panels off the vehicle, you're going to expose possibly an even worse problem behind them.
Yes, this is usually the case. As you remove panels, you may find you require further assessment of the job.
Yeah. Now, what about the sills? Because they're a notorious area, aren't they?
Yes. On this one, on the outer here, we can see it is badly corroded, but I've also found that the inner needs doing as well. But you will see that better when we remove the carpet later on.
Okay. Max, you've mentioned both repair and replacement. How do I make that decision, which one to go for?
It depends on availability of panels. Obviously, replacement gives you a better finish, but you'll see this as we go along.
Right. If I do choose to repair, where am I going to get the materials from?
Well, first make sure you use thin sheets similar to the original. And you can get them from engineering suppliers and also offcuts from factories.
Okay, so what's the next step?
Prepare the job for welding.
Right, let's go. Well, Max, I see in your preparation for welding you've already got the seats and carpets out. What else have you done?
Well, I've removed the bumper and I've turned the lights to make it easier for me to work. And of course, I've moved the bonnet. I had to mark the hinges to make sure I can relocate the bonnet properly afterwards.
Yes. Are you actually going to prepare all the areas we're going to be welding at before we start welding?
No, just one part at a time, because then it makes it easier to relocate the new part in.
Okay. So where do we start?
Right here with this wing.
Right. What are you going to need?
I've got a new wing over there. If you care to bring it over, please.
Well, it certainly seems to be the right panel, Max, but always worth checking, yeah?
Yes, John.
So what now?
If you care to put it down in the corner and bring me the fire blanket, please.
Right, what do we need this for?
To cover up the engine and the windscreen.
Why is that?
Because I'm going to be doing some grinding on here to reveal the spot welds.
Okay.
I'll leave this to you while I go and get the grinder.
Okay.
Oh, John?
Ah.
Pair of goggles, because I'm going to be doing some grinding.
Right.
You need to protect your eyes.
Okay.
Okay, mind yourself. If there was much dust, I'd use a simple dust mask. Now you can see the spots better, makes it easier for drilling.
Okay, what was the other bit you did down the front, Max?
Oh, I'll clean up the valance
Oh, I see. Why?
to make it easier for me to cut off the wing.
Right, Max, so where do we go from here?
Well, I'm going to drill out the spot welds with a special drill bit.
Well, what's special about it?
Well, compared with the other one, you'll see it has a flat end to it.
Okay, so off we go.
Now, could you hold that for me, please? All right, mind your eyes. Where the bottom panel is sound, I'll stop halfway. And there we are, John. All the spots drilled out.
Right, so what's next, Max?
Block the rear wheels so we can jack up the front end to remove the wheel.
Okay.
John?
Yeah?
Will you bring the axle stands, please?
Right.
Thank you. John, please take the wheel off and replace the nuts to protect the threads.
Well, Max, how has jacking up the car like this actually made the job easier?
Well, it makes it easier to get to the bolt to remove the wing.
I see. Couldn't you have just cut off the front here and ripped the thing off?
Yes, you can do, but unfortunately by doing so you can damage other parts and that would make it difficult to fit the new wing on.
Right, so how will you separate the old wing, which we want to replace, from the existing valance, this bit here?
I will carefully cut it off here on the wing with a grind rat using a cutting disc, similar around the headlight at the front here.
I see.
And after that, hopefully, it should come off. Right, John, here we are. The front is cut, and all things being equal, we should be able to pull it off now.
Right.
Give me a hand. Okay, just hold it there. We may need to prise it off with a hammer and chisel. Could you go and get that for me, please? Okay. Down again. Right, hold it there. Just one little bit. Just hold it there, John. Okay, John.
Right, is it?
Yeah. Could you get the new wing, please?
Okay. So, Max, I presume we're ready to weld now, are we?
Well, no, John. First, I've got to do some cleaning up of the area here, and also I've got some repair to do before we do weld the wing itself.
Okay. Now, I noticed behind you you've got a Mig Welding set. Is manual metal arc out of the question here, for instance, or perhaps oxyacetylene?
Well, you can't use these processes very well. I'll show you why later.
Okay. Right. So Max, why are we using MIG welding? Why not, for instance, manual metal arc or stick welding as it's known?
Well, John, that's because manual metal arc is really designed for thick material down to about 3 millimeter.
Right, well, we've got much thinner than that in the car bodywork material.
That's right, and I'll show you what happens by doing a little bit of welding on this, which is similar thickness to that. I'll do it with manual metal arc, and you'll see what happens.
Okay.
Here's a hand shield for you. Eyes. Well, there it is, John.
Well, that's hopeless, isn't it? Okay. So, what about the other one I mentioned, oxyacetylene?
Well, let me show you. Eyes. Oxyacetylene at the top, Mig underneath.
Well, Max, I can see from that little demonstration that Mig is obviously much faster. Does it have any other advantages?
Yes, as you can see, the heat was far more concentrated with Mig welding than it is with oxyacetylene. And with this one, you have to be more careful that you don't set things alight because the flame is on all the time.
Right, so in a nutshell, on a job like this, you'd always use Mig?
Yes, certainly.
Right. How can I learn a bit more about the technique?
Well, we have made a video on Mig welding that, as a beginner, it will show you pretty much everything you need to know, except for spot welds, which I'll show you now.
Right. Max, in getting off the old wing, you actually drilled out all the existing spot welds. How are you now going to prepare the car and the new wing for welding?
Well, the new wing will have to be either drilled or punched before I weld it on. Well, there we are, John. All the holes punched in.
Right.
Place it on the other piece to be welded.
What about if that bottom plate was covered in paint or generally grotty?
Well, you must make sure that you grind it clean first, and also use clamps wherever possible to make sure the two sheets are tied together.
Okay.
Like so. Eyes. Eyes. Hold it. That's still hot, and there may be sharp edges on it. Where are these?
So these are spot welds, are they, Max?
Well, no, not strictly speaking. These are plug welds. Spot welds are done by a different type of machines.
Right. Max, I notice you've been using a fairly large MIG welding set. Now, as a DIY enthusiast, I've only got a small MIG set with a disposable gas cylinder. Is that going to be enough for a job like this?
Yes, John. Most of the work that you need to do on this car, you should be able to do with a small MIG set. When you require a large set like this is when you're going to be doing a lot of welding for a long period of time.
Right. Okay, well, Max, as I understand it, we're ready to start welding.
Right, yes, let's get on with it.
Okay. Okay, Max, I notice while I've been away, you've actually done some work here.
Yes, that's because it would have been difficult for you to see what I was doing, John.
Okay, so we're concentrating on a more exposed area.
Yes, as you recall, this area here was badly corroded, which has now been cut off and cleared. And also, the top here has been ground clean, ready for welding.
Right.
I've cut and prepared a patch with holes punched in there, and that should go on there, like so.
Okay, any other preparations?
Yes, before I weld it, I will need to spray the back and the top here with zinc to prevent rust forming between the two sheets.
Right.
Well, there it is, John, ready for welding. I put a piece of brass at the front to support it to stop me burning through. Will you scrape the zinc through the holes, please?
Okay, small screwdriver, all right?
That's fine, yes. I'll go and get the welding gear.
Right.
Eyes. Eyes. Eyes.
Well, Max, what did you use the cold chisel for there?
So I can push the plate down to close the gap to make it easier for welding through.
Right. Are we finished now?
No, not quite. I've got some more welding to do there. Eyes.
A few small flames there, I noticed, Max. Anything to worry about?
No, John, nothing to worry, because that was just a little bit of paint next to the area I was welding.
OK, so where do we go now?
Right onto here. Eyes. I'll build up the flange with a piece of sheet I've cut and prepared and clamp ready to tack weld. Eyes.
Well, Max, I notice you've got this brass backing bar behind the weld. What's that for?
Because the sheet is thin and there was a gap there, I had to do that to stop the weld falling through.
I see. You also did it in very short lengths, not a continuous run. Why is that?
Again, to control the burn through because of the small gap and the thin sheet. I'm using the brass bar again to help me fill the hole. Eyes.
Well, Max, are we ready to weld the wing on now?
Yes. I've ground off the welds and I have also sprayed it with zinc and cleaned it off where the weld's going to be through the wing.
I see, to actually line up with these holes drilled in the wing.
Yes. Right, will you put the bolts in, please? This fits nicely, but sometimes they need a bit of persuasion. Let's check the door.
Looks pretty good.
Eyes. I've clamped the wing to the car, and I'm making a few welds next to the clamps to check the fit of the wing in position, and then later on I will come back and complete the welding. Eyes. 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 I'm ready to do the final welds now. Eyes. Now I'll be able to weld on either side of the clamp. Eyes. Eyes.
Well, Max, just before you start there, you're going to do the 5 plug welds around the headlamp going to a vertical surface. Now, any difference in your technique?
No, they're all the same.
OK, off we go.
Mind your eyes. And again.
Well, is that it, Max?
Yep, that's a swing welded. Now for the other one.
OK. Max, the offside wing now, largely the same technique?
Yes, I've cleaned it and drilled out the spot welds. I've also cleaned the valance. I'll cut it with an alternative method, plasma.
What's that?
Come with me and I'll show you. Right, this is the plasma cutting set.
Okay, how's it powered, Max? What am I going to need?
This one operates off an ordinary 13 amp household supply, and it also needs a compressed air supply.
Right.
This is the cutting torch. The set also has a return lead similar to the ones you have on a welding set.
Okay.
You'll need these goggles supplied with a set, by the way.
Is this all?
That's all you need with it to operate this set. For a large industrial set, then you will need a full face shield.
Okay, you're going to give me a demonstration?
Could you switch the set on, please? The arc melts the metal and the compressed air blows it away. You can see why I wanted to show you this. If you've got the kit, it's a fast, efficient way of doing the job. Now, let's use it on the car. I've covered up the hub to prevent it getting damaged by sparks. Connect up the clamp for me, please. Right, mind your eyes.
So, Max, can we take the wing off now?
No, John, because the bolts underneath are too rusty. I will have to do some further cuts along here. Hi, John. I see you've been looking at the new wing.
Yeah, same as the first?
Virtually the same, yes.
And you've got the car down off the stands, I notice.
Yes, that's to make it easier and more comfortable for me for the next part.
Okay, which is?
Fitting the suspension top plating.
I see. How are you going to do that?
Well, first, I will have to remove those 3 bolts, place that in position, trace around it so I can clean, grind, and remove the rust before welding the new plating. I've cleaned off all the rusty bits, and now I'm applying an anti-rust primer. I am now going to tack weld it where the plate is already touching down. And I will need to push it down in places to make good contact before I weld it. There's a few holes there that's meant for plug welding. I hammer and weld alternately, leaving under the flange of the wing till last. And that's the job completely welded. Right, and now for the sills.
Yeah, Max, you've turned the car around. We were dealing with the other side before.
Yes, but both sides need doing, but you'll be able to see better by turning it this way.
OK, so what you're actually going to do?
I'm going to replace both the inner and outer sill.
Inner and outer, two pieces?
Yes, I can show you in a drawing of the cross-section. That's the outer sill, and that's the inner sill. Actually a flange turned up at the edge of the floor. These are the areas which have been rusted, so I'll cut away the inner sill and the outer sill, just leaving the tops, which will keep it all in line. First, I'll weld in a new inner sill, then the outer. I'll finish off underneath by welding the bottom of the outer sill to the new inner and tacking the loose edges of the old floor panel.
So what sort of preparation does that involve?
Well, as you can see, I've got the car jacked up on axle stands to make it easier for me to get to the outer sill. The inner sill, I've done some clearing up here.
Well, I see you've moved the wiring, Max.
Yes, that's to prevent damage to the insulation when I'm welding. And that's the inner sill. It will eventually fit here.
I see. What's all this stuff?
That's the original soundproofing material, and it needs to be moved out of the way. Again, to prevent it catching fire.
OK.
I shall be cutting along here to remove the rusty parts.
Are you going to use the plasma or the grinderette?
No. I'll show you a third method, a jigsaw. You must use goggles with this.
All right, Max, so how's it going?
Well, there it is already. I've had to cut this in half to make it fit.
So, as I understand it, we're actually ready to start welding now, yeah?
Yes. Pass me the gun, will you? Thank you. Mind your eyes.
Max, I noticed you didn't have to lift your head shield there in between welds.
Yes, that's a different head shield that I used before. It has got a special filter that automatically darkens when the arc is struck. I'm tucking the inner edge in place and pressing it down and wedging it into position to make sure we have a good fit. Then I hammer between the tacks to close the gap so I can weld there. I'm welding where I cut the sill to make a good fit. I put extra patches in where there were holes that the sill didn't cover. I've ground the edge to make the trim fit. I've cut off the old outer sill, and now I'm ready to fit the new one.
Now, Max, why not do a butt weld along there?
Well, a butt weld will involve putting an awful lot of heat in there, which will tend to distort the metal.
Yes.
It is much better to do plug welds.
But you're going to be left with an edge, aren't you?
Yes, then that will be filled before it is painted. I start in the middle and work outwards, but staggering the welds to avoid rippling. Now for the underside. Of course, I've checked that the car is safely on the stands first. It's in places like this where I can't move my helmet, where the mask with the automatically darkening filter is really useful. The replacement inner sill has a gap where it fits over the seat bearer. So I'm putting on a patch to cover it. I wedge it up into place to tack it, then carry on as before. This is where I've welded on the inside, and now it needs to be welding along here on the outside.
Max, in grinding off the top of the welds like that, surely you weaken the welds, don't you?
No, unlike riveting, welding has melted the two sheets through together. All I've done is just ground the excess weld metal off the top.
OK. What if I want to do this sort of thing in a very conspicuous part of the car? I'm going to want an absolutely flush joint.
Well, we haven't done that kind of repair so far. Come with me and I'll show you how it can be done.
OK.
This is one of the old wings, and I want you to practice a flush patch on it.
So, job number one, mark up the area.
Well, you need to clean it up first to see the extent of the damaged area. And I want you to use the soft disc as opposed to a hard disc, which will damage it otherwise. Okay, John, drill 3 holes so we can make it easier to cut with a jigsaw.
There's the patch, shaped to fit.
Well, let's try it and weld it.
Okay.
Gun, please. Eyes. I'm checking to make sure that it is flush before I put more tacks in. Eyes. And now it's ready for welding through. Eyes.
Max, I noticed there you're welding no more than a second at a time.
That's to stop me burning through, because the oil wing is thin and there's also a small gap in there. Well, that's all the welding done. It's ready for grinding. And that's how you do a flush patch.
Well, Max, we've wound up the welding now. Looking back over the job we've just done, what would you say was the most important aspect of welding on cars?
Well, I would say safety is the most important thing. For instance, check the working environment and remove all flammable materials. Work out your exit points just in case of a fire, and make sure that the car is always well supported when you're working.
Well, we've shown you here a range of techniques for both cutting and welding, but everything in the program is possible using a small MIG set and a range of handyman tools. Well, for us too, it's round to the paint shop. Now we've shown you how to repair car bodywork, a glimpse of our work here at the Welding Institute near Cambridge. Close-up photography of a MIG welding arc shows how metal is transferred from the end of the wire to the molten weld pool. A small laser hermetically seals a metal can to protect the silicon chips and other components inside it from adverse environments. We also have much larger lasers which can make this sheet-to-section weld at high speed. To weld heavy plate with lasers, we make several runs, adding extra metal in the form of wire. Plastics are finding increasing applications in engineering, offering strength and corrosion resistance with light weight. But they may need to be joined. This is hot plate welding, used in factories and for on-site pipe welding. Friction welding is now widely used for mass production, particularly for car and truck transmission components. One part is rotated against the other under pressure to generate heat. Just a few of the many advanced research and development projects going on at the Welding Institute's extensive laboratories.